All right, everybody, welcome back to Unscripted from my studios in Hilliard, Ohio, my Jerseys of Hope studios. Man, I'm really excited about today. I've been excited about today for a minute since I heard, and I watch ABC6. I'm old enough to watch the morning news every morning. Like, I'm that guy now. And so I watch it on the treadmill when I walk, and I was so excited to see that they have a brand new edition. So my guest today is Dave Holmes. Dave, can you introduce yourself, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, Dave Holmes. I'm the new sports director here at ABC6, Fox 28, which is pretty cool. I've lived in Ohio for 41 of my 42 years, so it's always been a dream of mine to be a sports anchor and to be able to be a main sports anchor in the capital city, covering Buckeye football, Crew Jackets. It's honestly been a dream. So everything is really pointing upward right now. It's been a great month.
It has been a great month, and you've had a pretty incredible journey to get to where you are. We're going to get into that in a minute, but the great Clay Hall, can you honor him quickly? Because I'm anybody that lives in Columbus, Ohio. I'm from Cleveland originally, but as soon as moving to Columbus, Clay Hall was kind of the face. I've met Clay once. He was one of the most generous people I've ever met. You are stepping into some big shoes, and that's got to be a great honor for you as well.
It is. And Clay did this for 29 years, and I'm reminded of him every day when I walk in the sports office because a picture of him and a plaque is hanging right outside the door, and deservedly so. So I've known Clay. Before I worked here at ABC6, I spent the last 9 years at 10 TV, the CBS station in Columbus. So I have sat next to Clay at every Buckeye game in the press box for almost a decade. I've actually known him since 2007 was the first time we met when I was at the ABC station in Toledo. I used to come down to Channel 6 in Columbus, and this is before we could just send files. I used to come down here and sit in an edit booth all day, and he would let me use all of his Ohio State video for our ABC pregame show for the Michigan game. So I've known Clay for 17 years. I've known him well for the last 10. And yeah, you mentioned big shoes. It's interesting. I just think you don't try to replace someone like Clay. You try to carry on a legacy and respect the work and the foundation he laid, and then you try to do that in your own style. And really, that's kind of the goal, is how do I keep what Clay did, but do it in a style that's more me.
So who is the guy that replaced Jordan when he left the Bulls? I can't remember his name.
Yes.
The guard off the top of my head. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of it. Anyway, it's like replacing. It might have been I think he was a small forward. It starts with a P. Was it PJ something or
yes.
Who was it? Anyway, we'll figure it out. We'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, it was so-and-so. But anyway, or we could Google it because that's a lot easier today. But anyway, at the end of the day, it's like replacing a legend. But at the same time, now you get to create your own. And I think that's part of the move for you to ABC6 and Fox 28 is you now get to create your own you. You get to be the next you, and hopefully there's a plaque hanging next to Clay's one day, for what you've created. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah, because before I was working underneath Dom Taberi at Channel 10, who is a legend in his own right.
Right.
Dom's been there for, I think, 42 years.
Yeah.
So you had two main sports guys in this town that had been here a combined 70 plus years, which tells you how rare these jobs are when they open up, and which is why I made this jump. But you're right. When you are a number two, Dom is, the established brand there. And I love Dom. We talk all the time to this day. So this is not a knock on Dom. But when you are the main person somewhere else, you get to explore your own creativity a little bit more. So, yeah, you're right. This gives me a chance to kind of spread my wings, do my thing, and enact what my vision is for something while still trying to really be cognizant of what Clay Hall did because it worked so well. So, yeah, it's trying to find the right balance of being me, but also blending into the ABC6 brand because it's been so strong.
Well, I'm a huge ABC6 Fox 28 fan. As I said, I watch it every morning. I feel like the morning team is our friends, and I've never met any of them. Although we did adopt our dog because of Fur Baby Friday. So so there's that. Anyway, all right. So your career to get to this point, your journey, because I think so many people listen to sports talk radio or watch ESPN or see the guy on the news every night that does sports, and we all think, oh, I want to be a sportscaster when I grow up. I want to be on sports talk radio. Now you have podcasts like this one that I can just do it, but it's certainly not to the level that all those places that I just mentioned are. What was your journey to get there? Because it's very interesting, and I remember how you got there. But what was your journey?
Yeah, so I wanted to be a writer growing up. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, Stark County, grew up halfway between Akron and Canton, and I wanted to be Terry Pluto. If anyone knows
Oh,
Terry Pluto from the
love
Akron
to.
Beacon Journal for all those
Yeah.
years, that's where I knew him, was from the Akron Beacon Journal. And I wanted to be Terry Pluto. So I actually met Terry, and I remember I got his book signed once, and I was such a huge fan. Then as I got into high school and got ready to go to Kent State University there in Portage County, I started to see that the newspaper world was murky. I wasn't sure where it was headed. And as we saw later, it just shifted online. But
Yeah.
at that point, I thought maybe I should do this TV thing. And I made the move. I still, to this day, the TV is a necessary evil to get my words out, is the way I look at it.
Mm.
I enjoy doing TV, but I don't love wearing suits. I don't love getting dressed up. I would much rather do what you're doing, which is throw on a hoodie and a hat and say, let's go.
Let's
That's the
go.
way to do it. You figured that part out. So yeah, for me, I just wanted to be a writer, and then I went into TV because it was a necessary evil. Then when I was a junior at Kent State, I saw this new competition called ESPN Dream Job, and this is right after Survivor got going, The Bachelor, reality TV starting to get hot. This is 2003 and four, and ESPN jumps in, and they do this American Idol style competition where the winner gets to be an anchor at ESPN. And I thought, well, I didn't think anything about actually making it on the show, but I was getting ready to send out tapes and do the job interview process. And I thought this would be a great experience. So I went up to the flats at some bar at an open casting call, and I went in and I took a sports trivia test. There was a few thousand of us in Cleveland that day, and I did this sports trivia test, and then I did these recorded debates on camera and some writing tests, some essays, and I saw every hour or so they would walk 20 or 30 people out the door, and I just kept surviving. And then at the end of the day, they said, "Hey, we're going to bring 15 or 20 of you back tomorrow. Do you want to come back tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah." So we do it all again, a second day in Cleveland. And then at the end of that, they said, "We're going to take 5 of you to go to Chicago for the next round." And I went to Chicago. We did the same thing, a weekend of similar things. And then we're going to take 5 of you out of 50 at that point to New York City. So I made it out to New York City. And this was all spiraling out of control. This was supposed to be a job interview
Right.
experience. And it turned out to be an actual job interview. And then I ended up being the alternate. They took 12 people to go on the reality show. I was the 13th person. And it was at the Crown Plaza in Times Square. And Stuart Scott saw how disappointed I was. And he came out, the late Stuart Scott, and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. You had a lot of people in there fighting for you, but you're the 13th guy, and I didn't make
Mm.
it." So season 2 comes around. And sorry for a long-winded story here,
No, I
but
love it.
season 2 comes around, and I'm not going to try out. I said, "I'm not doing it. I'm done with this." Last year it was a lot of work and all this heartbreak, and now I'm a senior. It's time to get serious, not reality TV series. Let's get an actual job. And I was on the golf course playing Seven Hills in Hartville, and my friend called me and said, "Aren't you going to the audition?" I said, "No, I'm done with that. That was a." And he said, "You got to. What happened? You got to try out." I said, "I don't know." Well, he talks me into it. I leave the golf course and go straight up there. Audition closes at 4. I get there at like 4:02, and I said, "Hey, is it too late?" He said, "No, no, we remember you. Yeah, we remember you. Come on in." So I do the same thing, and I end up making it to Chicago and New York City. I'm back in the same exact hotel.
Yeah.
Kid you not. And they read the 12 names. I'm not on it. I'm the
Oh,
13th name again. I'm the alternate a second time.
wow.
I'm devastated because I'm like, this is a sick joke. And I joke with him throughout the audition process. Don't you dare bring me back here to make me the alternate again. That was a running gag. And they did it. And I was the alternate again. I go back to Kent State. I'm never thinking about ESPN the rest of my life. I'm done with these guys. I get a call that said something happened with one of the contestants.
Mm.
To this day, I don't know what that was. Would you get on a plane tomorrow to New York City? And I said, no, I'm done with it. I said no. I called my parents and said, "Hey, guess what? ESPN tried to get me to go on their little show." And I said, no. My parents freaked out. Like, you chased this for 2 years and you said no? I said, I think I'm just scared of something.
Yeah.
And I called him back and said, "Is it too late?" They said, "No, we'll get you on a plane tomorrow." I flew out. 12 went down to 1. I ended up winning the show. I got a 1 year anchor as a 1 year contract as an anchor at ESPN. I won a new car, some other type of things. And, you know, Stuart Scott, after I was the alternate the second time, I'm ashamed to admit it, I was crying in the lobby. I was so devastated that I went through this 2 year process and came up short. And I win the show, and Stuart Scott drops the keys of this car in my hand, and he gives me a big hug and he whispers, "This is why we don't cry in hotel lobbies."
Mm.
Just saying, you never want to give up on it. If it's something that matters to you, you stick with it. And I miss Stuart so much, but it was a crazy 2 year journey. So my senior year at Kent State University, I was an anchor at ESPN. So that is how I got my career start. It is very atypical. I tell all my interns as a joke when they say, "How do you get in the business?" I say, "You got to find the reality show that's right for you." That's my joke. So I did it a little differently, but it was
Yeah.
an unbelievable experience.
It is. It's a difficult journey, to your point, and I love me some Stu Scott because he's a Tar Heel, and and his battle publicly on and through ESPN was difficult to watch, but he did it in only a way that Stuart Scott could do it. And I'm not diminishing your story at all by any means, but I want to give a shout out to Stuart Scott. He was incredible. That is incredible. The journey. Do you feel like at any point? You just felt like this is what God had for you. Like you know what I mean? Like all those realities, those numbers that you ran through, huge crowds here, I'm here, I'm here. Did you feel like at some point, okay, this is what I'm meant to do, to the fact that you get to 13 and a lot of people would quit. And to your point again, at 13, they'd probably say, I'm out, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I missed. But it's those opportunities to push through and try one more time and look at where it landed you, man. That's an incredible story. It really is.
Yeah, it really is, and it all fell into place perfectly. If you believe in a divine intervention there, everything fell perfectly. And it's funny. I remember when I got on the show. This is such a cool story. They had. I'm terrified of change, and if you watch my debut on ABC6, they asked me to introduce myself, and I wrote a 2 minute piece, and the whole piece was centered around the fact that I hate change.
Mm-hmm.
So if I embrace change like I did at ABC6, it tells you that I must really believe in something, because I am a very adverse. I hate confrontation. I hate change. I like a very comfortable flatline style of living. I don't like ups and downs. So we get on the reality show, and we were in New York City for a few days before we film, and they had us meet with a psychologist. And she talked to each of us for about an hour, and I was the last one to go. And after we talked, I said, "Well, what do you think?" And she said, "You're the most interesting person I talked to out of the 12," because she said, "What I've heard is 11 people who are trying to convince themselves through false bravado that they are going to win this show." She said, "The sense I get from you is that you know you're going to win the show and you're terrified."
Mm.
And I got teared up,
Mm.
and I said, "That is so on the money." I couldn't believe how well she nailed me after 1 hour of talking to me. And I didn't go in there and say, "I'm going to win this thing." She just picked away at it through context clues, and she was on the money. I knew if I got in the room, I thought my ability to think on the fly and handle pressure, I thought I would win it. And my writing, I thought my writing and creativity will win the show. But I was scared. And she was right, to the point that when I won the show, we have this big after party there at this New York City club, and Stuart Scott's there, and Stephen A. Smith was a judge on my show, so they're all there, and all my friends. ESPN. This is back when ESPN's budget was off the charts, and they literally all my friends flew to New York City. I was supposed to have two guests. ESPN, I think it was the VP at the time, Mark Shapiro, said, "Let them all in." They all flew from Ohio, so all my friends are there partying with the ESPN personalities. They're having the time of their life. I go back to my hotel room and just break down, because I'm like,
Mm.
now I was a dog who caught a car, and I didn't have the first clue what to do with it. I had been chasing this, but now what do I do? And all I knew is suddenly I just went from the Stark County kid who went to school one county away in Portage County, And now I'm packing up and we're moving to Bristol, Connecticut to be an anchor on national TV at 21 years old.
Right.
And that is a lot to handle. And yeah, so it all fell into place. I'm glad because it was like learning how to swim by just being thrown into a pool.
Mhm.
And nothing shook me after that. I've probably been nervous, I don't know, 3 to 5 times in the last 20 years, just because it was like I got the scariest thing out of my system. And after that, nothing could faze me.
Wow. It's incredible. And I think what you've probably found is, meeting famous people, so to speak, whether it's sports, music, it doesn't matter, the industry. They're just people,
Yeah.
right? They're just like you and me. And I'm meeting one today. Like I'm talking to you today, and to me, you're a famous person. You're gonna be on the news, all the time, and we're gonna see your face. And anybody in Columbus is going to know you like they know Clay Hall. And so to me, that's incredible. But you and I are just sitting and having a conversation because you're just like everybody else. You've had opportunities, you've accepted them, you've embraced them. And I'm not diminishing by any means your title, your role, how hard you've worked to get there. I just think that, when you meet a Michael Jordan, whoever it may be, these huge athletes, they're just people. And,
Yeah.
and they've had and taken and accepted and worked hard for opportunities too. Have you found that in this industry? Because sports, we look at our sports and they're just icons. They're these amazing people. And unfortunately, we put them on platforms that maybe they don't even, what I'm saying? Like we create these things for them that sometimes isn't even fair just because they play a certain sport. Have you found that in this industry?
Yeah, it's funny. When I met Terry Pluto, when I was in high school and I had a chance to talk to him, he said, "Be careful," because he said a couple things. He said, "Don't ever let the millionaires make you cry."
Mm,
He said, from a fan standpoint, we often have more loyalty and we often have more emotion in it than sometimes the players themselves. And that's
right,
not true across the board, but
right.
sometimes it is. And he also said, "Be careful because your heroes can let you down." And
100%.
and it's funny because you meet some, and my hero growing up by far was Mark Price. That was it. I mean, and part of that is because I went to the chapel in Akron, which is where Mark Price went. And when I was 11 years old, my dad was on the video crew. The pastor there was Newt Larson, great man. And he would film these commercials. And my dad was on the video crew. And my dad, every now and then, would let me tag along because he knew I was, maybe interested in getting into TV or writing. And he said, "Hey, we're filming commercials with Mark Price next week. Would you like to come along?" I lost my mind, right?
Right.
So somewhere I have a VHS tape of me rebounding the basketball, appearing with Newt Larson and Mark Price in these commercials. So 11-year-old me, that's the peak of my basketball fandom. I would be 1993 at this point. So you're talking peak Jordan Bulls, peak Cavs Bulls, Brad Daugherty, Larry Nance, Hot Rod Williams, Craig Elo, all those guys. So for me, meeting Mark Price was, this guy's the greatest guy on earth, and he lived up to everything I thought he'd be.
Mm-hmm.
So you love having those experiences where they're great people. They're not all like that, sadly.
No. Right.
Not everyone is. So you are right in that they are all just people. It's good when people understand that.
Yeah.
Not everyone does. Sometimes people buy their own hype over time. And, I guess I understand how it happens when your ego is fed from the time you're 11, 12, 13 now in the AAU world. But it's so nice when you meet people like a Mark Price, or Barry Sanders was my other idol.
Mm.
There are only a few times where I freak out, where I really feel my heart rate going if I'm going to interview someone. At this point, it's kind of out of my system.
Yeah.
But because now you're older than the player, so it's weird once you get older than the players. But when I was at ESPN, I got to interview Barry Sanders, and to me, also nicest, most humble guy. That was one that really got me because he was my football idol growing up, and he lived up to the hype of being a good guy.
I think we live in a social media world too, where, and now it's funny because we can create online personas and be influencers,
Yeah.
and be a real jerk offline. What I mean? And I've always said that, like, anybody that I follow on Twitter or that follows me, and we've had some great meetups. I love Twitter. I still love Twitter, and I know a lot of people hate it, but that's my jam. And so, but when I meet up with somebody that I've become friends with on Twitter, I want them to be who I think they are and what they post. And it's no different than athletes that you meet. Sometimes they let you down. Like, man, you're not who I thought you were on social media. You just post stuff to make people follow you. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's what has happened too with people that I've met. So this has to be a very exciting time, but scary time for you as well. There's a new opportunity here. What can people look forward to from seeing you now in this new opportunity with ABC and Fox?
Yeah, it is. It's a different gig than what I had over at 10 TV. This is way more reporter story. 10 TV is more standard. Hey, yeah, we'll see you at 6:20 and 11:20 every day. Here's 3 minutes of everything that happened. Channel 6 believes in more of a storytelling philosophy. So I'm going out and doing more interviews and more stories, which I really like because it's given me a chance to meet more people, get out of the office, and especially work on writing because that has always been my first love. So we're going to tell some good stories. We're about to do the Memorial Golf Tournament here coming up soon.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, this fall is where it gets real. I mean, I'm going to host the Football Fever, which if you live in Central Ohio, you know is the brand. I mean, that is
Big
an
deal.
hour every Saturday before the game, a half hour live after the game. It's going to be fun. I finally had a chance to sit down with our analysts the other day. They all seem like they're great guys. They're excited. We're going to try to, do it right and have some fun this year. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you picked a good year because Ohio State's pretty much loaded, right?
Yes. I hate using the phrase make or break because everything can go wrong so quickly with one fumble,
Sure.
one call, anything. But Ohio State, this is the most pivotal year of the Ryan Day era, and it's not even close. They did everything they could. They won the offseason, but I Googled this the other day. You don't get trophies for the offseason. Turns out that's not a thing. But Ohio State had the best offseason in school history. They retained every player they needed outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. Don't blame him one bit, obviously. And they got some great transfers. I mean, they got Will Howard from Kansas State. They got Caleb Downs, probably the best transfer in the country, safety from Alabama. They added Jeremiah Smith, who's probably the best high school wide receiver I've ever seen. So this is a year where Ohio State needs to get down to business, and they sure have to win that one Thanksgiving weekend and then make some noise in this new tournament.
Well, I'll get a shot in because I'm a Carolina fan, so I'll put a shot in on Duke. You don't hang banners for preseason rankings.
That's right.
Or recruiting.
All the All-Americans in the world don't buy you a win in Chapel Hill. I'm a Carolina fan too, so I got you.
Right. Or recruiting and preseason rankings don't hang banners. So Shout out to Duke. But okay, so it's got to be so exciting. I'm very excited to watch you. I'm so honored that you would come on. And what do you do outside of, how do you get away from being the guy that does sports locally and being, the new face of all these things? What do you do outside of that?
Yeah, so normally I wake up and I just go for like an hour walk, jog. Normally I'll walk a mile, jog a mile, walk a mile, just do that for an hour, listen to a podcast, something like that. Golf, I never golf as much as I want, but I try to get out once a week. I try to play every other round with people for social and by myself because I just find that playing a sundown round of golf, I like to tee off around 5, play as the sun goes down. It's just you and the deer. There's something very peaceful that I find helps me kind of reset for the week. So yeah, those are kind of the ways I try to just get away a little bit.
I love it. What is it like being at ABC 6, Fox 28? Because I have to think, because again, I'm way too tied to the morning show because I'm that guy and I watch it. That crew is pretty fun. It seems like they're really genuinely care about each other. They've been through some storms together. It seems like over the years that I've watched, wins and losses and heartbreaking moments and celebrations. They just seem like a great crew that I'd love to hang with. They just seem like people, and I think that's why they're successful. Have you found that as well?
I have. And when people, ask me, why'd you leave? Why'd you leave? Right. So the main thing I wanted, I mean this wholeheartedly. I wanted 2 things. I wanted culture and creative freedom. Those are the only 2 things. I'm 42 now. The only 2 things that matter to me. I've gotten to cover the Super Bowl and the Rose Bowl and all these other things. I've gotten to go to the NBA Finals and the World Series and the Stanley Cup Finals. I've been to just about everything. We got to get me down to Augusta. That's the one that's on the list. But I've gotten to do just about everything. I just want culture and creative freedom. And when I talked to the people who I knew over here, everyone raved about the culture, saying it's so nice. Everyone will embrace you. And from day one, they did. I thought there might be some he's not Clay Hall whispers around the corner. It's the opposite. Everyone has come in and said, hey, we know you're not Clay, but we hear great things about you. We're going to help you succeed. I can't tell you how kind everyone's been. from day one. And I've joked around, I haven't earned it yet. They didn't make me earn it. Most of the time you have to go into a building and win the building. This one was like, I just have to go in and not lose the building. They
Mm.
embraced me. And that's such a powerful feeling to not have to work your way in. Everyone already embraced me. And then the creative freedom. I have a boss here, Nicole, the news director, who told me during the job interview process, I believe in you as a storyteller. I believe in your creativity. I know you're outside the box. I love that. You tell me what you want to do. We'll get you the resources. And I'm telling you what, when you hear that, I mean, it's not that way everywhere. I've been at several places. It's not always that way. So the ABC6 culture, creative freedom, it's what I wanted. It's what it's been. I'm 1 month in, and I couldn't be happier.
Your wit is pretty catchy. From what I've seen in the very short sample
Yeah.
size, your wit is pretty funny. You were just with the Savannah Bananas over the
Yes.
weekend, so that clip, and I'll stitch it into the interview here, the link. It was hysterical when you said, "Hey, I won't steal it. You got to watch it. People have to
Yeah.
watch it because there was a thing about a backflip, so you got to watch it." Not spoiler alert, but no, it was awesome, man. Your wit seems very funny. Where did you develop that?
Yeah, that's I don't know. That I was an interesting kid because I was very reserved. I was a shy kid, but then I would have the lead part in all the school plays and musicals. And it was this weird dichotomy of he's reserved, but when the light comes on, he's not.
Yeah.
And I'm still that way a little bit. I'm still a little bit. I like I said, the golf. It's kind of weird, right? I'll go to a movie by myself. I'll play golf by myself. Those are weird recluse behaviors, right? Like people might say that's a weird guy.
Yeah.
But I like my alone time, but I'm very social. I just like a little bit of both. So I've always been fun loving with people. I've always liked the performance element, the quick wit element. That's why I thought I would win the reality show, why I thought I would win Dream Job, because I knew most of that show was how will this person handle difficult things on the fly? And my ability to not panic or get nervous really helps. And the piece you mentioned with the bananas, that's kind of my favorite thing to do is just go out and do off the cuff interviews, interact. It's almost kind of what Jay Leno did, almost the jaywalking type thing years ago. But I love doing it because there's no script. You have no idea what it's going to be, and you just create on the fly. And I think sometimes, sitting in a controlled studio environment where it's 64 degrees Fahrenheit with perfect lighting and makeup, reading a teleprompter is something that a lot of people can do.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people can just think on the fly and be quick and creative. And so for me, that was always the goal. My professors at Kent State said, Dave, you are just a pale Midwestern college boy who wants to be a sports anchor like every other pale Midwestern college boy. So how will you stand out? And I always thought it will have to be writing, creativity, and quick wit. So that's it. It ain't the looks, baby. I'm a 6 on a 1 to 10. I'm an average looking dude. I am average weight. I am average looking. I mean, I'm not hideous, but I'm sure not winning because of this face either. So I know what I am. I'm very comfortable in my own skin. I'm an average looking dude, but I do have above average writing and creativity. So I always tell kids, find your strength and lean into it.
Yeah.
If you can hide your weaknesses and accent your strengths, it really is like putting on makeup.
Yeah.
Hide what you don't want people to see, accent what you do, and it's a bit sleight of hand. Say, hey, don't look at the average face. Look over here at these creative words. And that's kind of been my strategy, and it seems to be working after about 19 years in the business.
Well, you mentioned me wearing a hat and a hoodie. You just covered why I wear a hat and a hoodie. So,
Right.
So, all right, I have to tell this quick story. It's not a brag, because I feel like it ties in. In 1995, back WKNR in Cleveland, Ohio, had a 1 week thing. Opening day was coming for then the Cleveland Indians, and you called in every day, and you would record these little messages, and they would whittle down. It was reality TV before reality TV because it was on radio, and they would whittle it down. And so on that Friday, I had somehow made my way and convinced them to make me in the finals. And so they said whoever won got to throw out the first pitch on opening day in 1995.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
of all the years to throw it out.
Right. Well, we went to the series. So,
Yeah.
I always tell the Indians, hey, it turned out pretty well. You might want to have me back again. But anyway, so I won this stupid radio contest, and it was one of those moments where, like, I think the reason why I bring it up, it's not a brag. I think the reason why I bring it up is because I just stepped into it. Like you said with ESPN, I just stepped into it. And before you knew it, I'm in the finals, and I still look back at it, and it's crazy to me that I got to live this crazy life where I got to be on the mound. The year before, they opened Jacobs Field, and Bill Clinton was on the mound. And I still have a Cleveland Plain Deer article that says, last year, Bill Clinton threw it out. This year, Aaron Conrad from Bedford, Ohio, throws out the first. Like, that's so cool. I don't know. I think what I want to encourage people in that whole story wasn't about me. The story is you had an incredible story with ESPN, and it's led to so many opportunities for you. I have done the same in my life, not with ESPN, but just in life, man. Just step into opportunities, step through the door, take risks, because what's the worst that can happen? Right? Like, I don't know. I guess that's what I wanted to share with people. And I feel like that's what you've experienced in your life too. Like, hey, what's the worst can happen? I lose. Okay, cool. I move on with, I didn't lose anything. I just didn't win. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like that's what you've had in your life as well.
I mentioned the Crown Plaza Times Square Stuart Scott. So the second time I'm named the alternate, and I'm sitting there, I'm an emotional wreck, and Stuart comes over and talks to me. And he told me, he said, 4 people in that room wanted you. There was one guy who didn't, who I found out later was Al Jaffe, who happens to be the guy who hired every SportsCenter anchor for about 25 years. And Al and I are good. Like, he said later, I grew on him. And so this is not a shot at him. But at that point, he just wasn't feeling it. And in a subjective business, that's what happens. Sometimes the gatekeepers just aren't feeling you. But what Stuart Scott said to me was, he told me that he sent out about 30-some tapes before he got anyone to hire him. And he said, I was a different brand of sports anchor. I wasn't polished. I was way more eccentric. I was way more flashy. He was who he was. And he told me that getting a job is like getting a date to the prom. He said, it doesn't matter how many girls say no. If one says yes, you're going dancing. And I love that. And I tried to think about that because in high school, I was like, I better not ask a girl and get told no, or else I'll feel like a real clown. It's like, no, who cares? Right. Swing away. Swing away in your dating life, in your professional life, in whatever it is, because as someone who admittedly hates change, that mindset keeps you from growing. And I've had to learn. I've learned over time that you have to embrace it and you have to go for it. And Stuart gave me that advice, and it's spot on. It's on the money.
Man. Dude, this has been awesome. I don't want to take a ton of your time because you've been awesome enough and just gracious enough to be on with me today. I'm so thankful. I'm very excited. When we were messaging, I was like, did we just become best friends? Because I feel like we might be best friends. So if you ever want to hang out, we can. That sounds really creepy. But no, seriously, I'm really happy for you. I'm very excited for you. I'm a huge fan of ABC6 and Fox and your work. I just think you're going to now take what Clay did and make it your own. And now you're going to be the new Clay Hall that people will talk about years from now. And I hope your plaque is right next to him one day in that hallway. And somebody else, whoever that is in the future, passes it by and talks about what you did for Buckeye fans and for everything that they long and cling for when it comes to Buckeye football.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you just want people to say he was a good guy.
Yeah, man.
And as much as I want to be good on TV, hopefully the people I meet in the public just have a positive impression of me, because that's the most important thing. Now, I need to be good on air because I need this job. That bank's going to come calling every month. But I hopefully we can be good at the job and also a good person in the process, because Clay has been the best to deal with. We are talking several times a week. He's giving me advice. I'm reaching out. So that's what you want to be. You want to be the type of person who does a good job and then helps others.
Well, if not, you could always throw on a hat and a hoodie and do a podcast that doesn't pay. So
there's always that. That's the fallback.
So just know it's out there. If you ever want to do that, that's an option because everybody's got one. There's like 5 million in the world.
Love
it. Man, I appreciate you. I'm so honored to be on with you today, and I hope you come back again. I look forward to just watching you just take off, and I'm going to celebrate everything and all of your success, man.
You got it. Thanks for having me.